We knew each other because I had written a movie for them a few years back called Zombie Apocalypse, which starred Ving Rhames killing zombies the way God meant for him to kill them, a sledgehammer, right? So if you ever seen
the
Ving
good
Rhames
old-fashioned way
throw a sledgehammer and explode a zombie head, that was thanks to me in the asylum. And so we conceived the show. I brought them this idea. They wanted to do it, and the show vacillates a little bit between serious drama and campy humor.
Right,
so
sure.
it kind of whipsaws, but it's definitely like Sharknado was a great idea for a movie, but just couldn't sustain over 13 episodes or hopefully 5 seasons. So we really knew going in, like, we weren't making the Sharknado of TV. We were making a TV show, and there would be these campy or fun moments in it, but it wasn't going to be like a Sharknado times 13.
Okay. So it just was Sharknado, that style just wasn't sustainable for...
Yeah, Sharknado is great for 2 hours,
right,
if you don't care. But, episodic TV really works when you start to care about the characters and you learn their backstory.
Sure.
And, a lot of the backstory of the characters in Sharknado are goofy or whatever.
Yeah.
We have very sort of serious
Police
guys,
Squad, though.
So.
Couldn't you pitch it like as a Police Squad show?
Leslie Nielsen somewhere?
Yeah, I think it would be very tough for just a pure humor zombie show to survive on TV.
Right.
I think you need that mix of stuff that people get interested in the characters and want to stick around. But, then you also have the Liberty Bell crashing down a street in Philadelphia, mowing over a zombie. So you kind of get the best of both worlds.
I guess. Gotcha.
So are you bothered by the constant comparisons to shows like Walking Dead or just this whole new zombie genre? Or
No,
do you welcome it?
Neither. I knew it would happen. It's
Sure.
inevitable.
Right.
And it was curious for me, knowing how the show goes, how long it would take for people to just start saying, "Oh, this is something different."
Right.
It took 3 episodes before I really started seeing that.
Right.
'Cause
Early on, the buzz was going to be, well, it's just going to be like a lesser version, or it's
yeah.
a sci-fi
Everybody was
version.
like, "Is
Right.
this just like the low rent version
Right.
of The Walking Dead?" And what I realized is, because there's not a lot of zombie shows out there at all. You can kind of say, like, In the Flesh, maybe The Return. I don't know. I wouldn't even consider that a zombie show. So really, there's only one thing to compare it to. But if you were to think about it like a cop show, like a new cop show, everyone doesn't go, well, that's just like all the other 32 cop shows. And it's just because we haven't seen a lot of stuff. So I think it really took people a little while to get used to it. And I think everyone came in just thinking, well, it's like going to be just like The Walking Dead, and then when it wasn't, they were kind of like, some people were kind of like taken aback.
Right.
They're like, wait, they make jokes in this show, and then they get it like, oh, they make jokes in this show.
Right. Because
I get
it's not
it.
The Walking Dead.
Because it's not The Walking Dead.
Right.
So, but I knew, like, just because I'm in the TV business for a long time, that we were getting comparisons, and the worst part of that is it's literally the #1 show in the history of basic cable. So, there's the bar is just infinitely high. You know what I mean?
Right.
But we've definitely been very happy with the ratings, and have definitely found an audience that there's a lot of people who like us in addition to Walking Dead. There's a lot of people who like us instead of The Walking Dead. There's a lot
my
of people
stepson falls into that second category.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he gave up on The Walking Dead, and he's telling me about Z Nation, this and that. He actually had a specific question, too. He said, he said, when is someone going to, he goes, who's going to die? I said, I don't think they're going to tell us that.
I can't say.
There you go.
Spoiler.
It was great that he asked. He was just honest. I said, what do you want him to ask him? He said, ask him who's going to die. I said, okay, there you go.
I will tell you that it's the zombie apocalypse, and so you're just, you're never safe. No one is ever safe. So, not everyone is going to make this journey.
Within everyone's zombie apocalypse. No safety.
Not everyone is going to make this journey to California, one way or the other. Some people don't make it for various reasons that I won't go into, because spoiler.
Absolutely.
Do you have a particular outline of where you want the series to go in terms of, like, this is the beginning, this is where the characters are going to go, this is the middle, and this is the end?
Yeah, absolutely. We sit down in the writer's room, and it's called, Breaking the Show, and we have 13 episodes, and those episodes have both plot arcs and character arcs. So the different characters have different arcs that they follow. And then we also know if we get more seasons, we know where those are going to go. So, we can't really say anything, but we know where it's going and where it can go, and all the things that we want to do, and also what we want to have happen to the characters, because that's really important at the end of the day. Is if you don't care about anyone in the show, then you're probably not going to come back, or at some point you're going to lose it. So we try to keep you interested in the characters, and all the characters have really interesting backstories that we get into slowly but surely.
And I thought that was interesting about the show, too, is it has a very fast pace, but it still has those character moments. Sometimes when you watch The Walking Dead, it's like, it's a very slow pace, even though there's a lot of character stuff. It's like, Z Nation little has a bit of both.
Yeah, we wanted it to be action. I mean, listen, I have watched every episode of The Walking Dead. I'm a huge fan. It's the #1 show on TV. just every once in a while I wish it had a few more zombies and a little bit of a quicker pace. You know, I maybe didn't need to stay on the farm quite that long. I maybe didn't need to come back to the prison so much, you know, and I know why they did it, and it works for them, and there's, you know, I was just talking about this with the executive at Syfy, who's a friend of mine. Like, there's nothing you're going to say that's going to improve The Walking Dead because it's the #1 show on TV, so it's not a knock, but it just felt like, you know, there was also room for something in addition to The Walking Dead that had a quicker pace, had some humor to it, and had a lot of action. So, it's really a road show. Ours is a road show, and theirs is more of a survival show. Ours is really about competent people who have survived a few years and are doing new stuff, and you know, The Walking Dead is very much in that sort of survival mode, which I'm a huge fan of. I mean, I love all the zombie movies, like Dawn of the Dead, the remake is one of my favorite zombie movies, but that tells that moment in time where everybody's just trying to survive, and we're a few years past that, and you know, there's actually hope for a cure. So I think that kind of sets us apart from some of the other stuff you've seen in the world of zombies.
Can you tell me what the choice behind not showing them, like, traveling anywhere between the episodes? We kind of get, like, in the last one, they talk to Citizen Z, and they're like, oh, you have to get to McLean, Virginia, and it's 100 miles away, and then, like, right after that, they're in McLean, Virginia.
Primarily, and I don't say this in a flip way, but primarily, like, it would be boring to watch them drive 100 miles, you know what I mean? Like, occasionally you would come down, oh, they got to move a tree out of the way, or there's some zombies. So we try to show you what they run into in the road, and you've seen them have some encounters on the road on the way to places. But it would be very hard to do an episode where they were, you know, traveling for a lot of it, because honestly, it's just as tedious as you and I traveling with the occasional zombie on the side of the road or a fallen tree and, you know, stuff like that. So, and also, you know, you want to get to someplace relatively
Right. I mean, I like the
quickly
fast pace of it. I was just
no, it's a great question.
Yeah.
It's a great question. It's just
the choice was to
when you actually
cut it out.
Yeah, think about what it looks like. You're kind of like, well, maybe we'll speed along.
I think that was the most jarring one from the episodes. I was like, oh, they're 10 seconds later. We've gotten to great, but
we take some liberties with their travel. So, well, I remember there was this episode. My wife watches Falling Skies, and one of the characters was like away in Boston. And he somehow, I can't remember where he shows up, but it's like further down the eastern seaboard. And literally they just cut to, there's a boat that pulls up, he hops off the boat, and then he's back. You know, there's no backstory whatsoever. They're like, how was the boat ride? He's like, it was great. You know, like, oh, the guy learned how to sail a boat down by himself in the alien, you know, apocalypse and stuff. But, you know, so it's TV liberties. What else you guys got?
Okay. Because there is that infused campiness into the show.
Yep.
And because you're on basic cable, do you ever want to man, I just really wish we were on HBO so I could do like an Evil Dead moment?
I don't think there's anything that we've wanted to do that we couldn't do. I mean, they swear. I mean, they're literally, the show is super violent on one level.
That's why I insist my kids watch it.
Yeah. We don't do nudity, obviously, because we're basic cable, but then I don't think you want to see too many people nude in the zombie apocalypse, you know, like Game of Thrones. I get it.
Right.
But yeah, there's really nothing we haven't been able to do. I mean, they even swear, which is, you know, like 5 years ago you wouldn't see the swearing that they do.
Right.
So there's not too much that we're not able to do, and the network's very supportive. I mean, you know, we have cannibals literally cutting the flesh off of a live human. You know, I don't know, you know, how much more overboard we'd want to get. But so yeah, I feel like we've been allowed to do whatever we want. Good question. I like that.
When we originally talked to you through Syfy right before the show came out, you talked at that time about having some budget constraints. Yet now that I've seen the show, I don't see those, which is a testament to what you guys have done. Can you talk about how you know, the extra work and the thought it went to make all that kind of go away by the time we saw it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pre-planning as to what we can do. It's kind of like where you spend your time. I mean, the great thing about a zombie apocalypse is you can always find some area that has been abandoned and then end up shooting there, so you get a lot of like production value. But what you actually get is it's much cheaper, because when you want to rent an abandoned, burned down building, it's cheaper than renting a brand new luxury building, right? So some of that is there. You know, a lot of it was pre-thought out. There was a lot of back and forth with how the zombie makeup was doing and how, because it's very hard to make up a lot of zombies. The one thing you run into in a zombie show in terms of logistics is if you want 50 zombies, it's a lot harder to do than if you want 5 zombies, right? You don't just all of a sudden get like way more special effects artists that can pile in and do all that stuff. So you have to do very careful planning. And also we work with a company up in Spokane, Washington called North by Northwest, a little clever film name there. And they know the area very well, so you'll say random things like, well, we need an abandoned nuclear power plant. Well, we have an abandoned nuclear power plant. Or there's a water treatment plant that doubles as a nuclear power plant, and so you go there and you're like, okay, great, and it's like 10 minutes away, and so I think it's just been very smart and really good production team up there. I'm glad you say that, because, and also the way we decided to shoot it, we very much looked at like the Saving Private Ryan, Black Hawk Down sort of. You get that a hint of that treatment to the way we film it, but that also makes some things easier. It hides some sins. It makes the blood look blacker. So it's always good.
So you touched on this, answering this gentleman's question just a bit, but regarding when you were speaking of the character arcs, but regarding just the overall template of the show, what's going to happen, is that you already have that right now, like set in terms of what you want to have happen?
Yeah.
For example, like Vince Gilligan, I remember hearing, even as recently as the last season of Breaking Bad, wasn't exactly sure what it was that he was going to have each element, relate to. So you're not, right now, you already know the entire situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I would describe it as, we know where we want to go, and we might not take the exact way we're thinking in our minds, but we know where we want to go, and we're willing to take, different paths to get there as they present themselves, because new ideas come up all the time. So you think of something, and literally, like I was on set one time, and one of the actors came up and mentioned something to me, and then we ended up the next day writing a whole new scene for him and shooting it, because the more you think about something, the more you think about it, the more ideas come up. But yeah, we know kind of where we want everything to go. And in TV, you always just have to be flexible in how you get there.
Right. So that was sort of the next portion of the question, was how do you sort of deal with that when there's obvious constraints of, whether this show is going to get picked up into season 3. Like, in other words, you don't know necessarily the duration of the show. So do you ever end up having to stretch it out more or cut it down some?
We have way more ideas than we're able to fit into the first season. So, I mean, we could be telling these stories easily for 4 or 5 years, because a lot of what they're doing is, I can't remember, there's like some Steve Jobs quote where like the goal of the journey is not the end, but it's to be on the journey. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's a much better way to say that, but you get the idea. And so our show is very much about the journey. It's every sort of step every step they takes them closer to solving the zombie apocalypse, but takes them further into peril. And that's a great place to be for a show. And that was very much by design. Every show needs that thing that drives it to be able to have an episode, not only like episode 3, but like what's episode 4 of season 3. To me, as a TV guy, if I didn't have any idea where that was, I'd be a little worried, especially in our kind of show where that's going to be a problem. I think it's a little easier on a more mainstream.
Have you ever worked on a show where like it just the vision was lost maybe after like the first 3 episodes, and you were like, this is going nowhere?
I will say, so when I was on the network side, we would get pilot scripts in, and there are definitely scripts where you would read them, and in an ideal world, a pilot script, you'll get not only what that episode is, but what the sort of show is. And there were, and I won't say it,
you don't have
to. But there was one that was there was one that was very much, I could see it as a movie, but I just could not see it as a TV show. And it literally later became a blockbuster movie. And so I was like, see. So, I've seen that, but when I think of, when I would look at pitches coming into the network, the thing I think about is, okay, what could episode 4 of season 2 be? And you don't necessarily have to know exactly what that is, but having a ballpark idea.
Yeah, you need something.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I think it's very tough on those shows, and you see them reinvent themselves. Like 2 years in, I have a friend working on a show that I won't name, but basically they've been asked to come in and reinvent the show in season 3 because there's nowhere else for it to go in its current incarnation. So, that's tough. It's tough to come up with an idea that works, week in and
especially
week
if
out
it's on your original idea and you're inserting yourself into someone else's pie.
I mean, that is one thing The Walking Dead has is 100 issues of a comic or whatever, or more than well over 100.
That's a guideline.
Yeah, so that always helps them. So. But that's another good question.
So what's it been like working with Syfy, considering it's a very interesting time on Syfy since they have a lot of new interesting shows. You have Bitten that was just picked up for a 2nd season, and you have 12 Monkeys coming out later next year. So what's the collaboration? What's the excitement around the network?
Well, I know everyone there because I worked there for so long. In fact, 12 Monkeys was one of the last pilot scripts I read as an executive at the network. And which was really funny because when that hit my desk, I was like, I love the movie. There's no way anyone's going to do this as a TV show. And then I read it. I'm like, oh, this would make a great TV show. So I'm really glad they're making it. But they're great because I know them all. And they're friends of mine. So they've been super wonderful to work with. And I knew what I was getting into with them.
All right. Well, thank you.
Sure.
It's great
Thanks,
talking
guys.
with you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You guys.